My name is Madeline Carter, and at 33 years old, I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. But nothing could have prepared me for the sound of my own mother's voice whispering about my money like it was theirs. That Tuesday evening, I was riding high on adrenaline and exhaustion. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift managing the ICU at Portland Grace Medical Center. The exhaustion I could handle, I was used to it, but the reason behind my high spirits was something else entirely. That morning, our director had surprised me during our staff huddle with a $12,000 leadership retention bonus. $12,000. Recognition for years of grit, sacrifice, and holding a broken system together during the worst of the crisis. I'd barely made it back to my office before tears welled in my eyes. Not because of the money itself, but because someone had finally seen the weight I'd carried. And as always, my first instinct was to share it with my parents. I stopped by their house on the drive home. No grand plan, just a spontaneous burst of wanting to see them proud. Maybe take them out for dinner. Maybe even offer to help with the kitchen remodel they'd been talking about for 2 years. That was me, the thoughtful daughter, the one who always offered before being asked. Their house sat nestled on a quiet street in Lake Oswego, a tidy blue Craftsman with a porch swing and fresh flower beds. I parked at the curb and walked up the steps with my keys already in hand, ready to let myself in like I always did. But before I reached the door, I heard something. Voices inside. The kind that made you pause. "She hasn't noticed the withdrawal yet," my mother said, her tone sharp, not like the soft-spoken kindergarten teacher she was to the world. "Don't say anything until we figure out how to ask for more." My hand froze midair. Then Julian's voice, low and smug. "You think she'll go for another 5? She's got it. She always has it." Silence. Then my father's voice. "Let's not push too hard too fast. We'll guilt her into thinking it's her idea. She's always trying to fix things." I stepped back from the door so quickly I nearly tripped on the porch step. They weren't talking about a favor. They were talking about a plan. My plan had been a surprise visit to celebrate something good. Theirs had been a secret conversation about how to siphon more from me without me noticing. And that's when the shift happened. Not just in my chest, but in my entire life. They thought they knew Madeline Carter, but the version of me that drove away from their house that night? She wasn't coming back the same. 2-2. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake in my apartment, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me, trying to reconcile the people I heard speaking behind that door with the parents who raised me. But the more I thought about it, the more the memories rearranged themselves. Each one becoming clearer, sharper, more disturbing. Growing up in Salem, Oregon, our family looked normal on the outside. My dad, Gregory, ran a modest accounting firm downtown. My mom, Nadine, taught art classes at the local rec center and sold handmade jewelry at weekend markets. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom home with creaky floors, a fenced-in backyard, and mismatched furniture that never quite got replaced. They called me the steady one. I never got into trouble. I brought home good grades, did the dishes without being asked, and read books instead of sneaking out like Julian did. They said I was mature beyond my years. Back then, I wore it like a badge of honor. Julian was 3 years younger, born breech with a mop of blonde curls and lungs that could shatter glass. From the moment he arrived, everything tilted in his direction. He got the bigger bedroom. He never had to finish his chores before dinner. And when he crashed his first car at 18, high on something he never admitted, our parents didn't punish him. They comforted him. When I turned 16, I spent every weekend working at a local diner to save for a car. My parents chipped in $2,000 when I'd saved $3,500 on my own. I remember being grateful, ecstatic even. That old Mazda 626 became my world. But when Julian turned 16, they surprised him with a brand new Subaru. Full tank, bow on the hood. Not a word about saving. I confronted my mom, asked why the rules were different. She gave me that soft smile and said, "You've always been more independent, Madeline. Julian, he needs more support." College followed the same pattern. I earned scholarships, worked 2 jobs, and graduated with debt. Julian floated from major to major at a private university, never paying a cent. When he eventually dropped out to explore business ventures, no one batted an eye. They even celebrated his courage to find his path. Meanwhile, I worked my way from floor nurse to ICU team lead. On holidays, when I brought wine and thoughtful gifts, Julian brought excuses and empty hands. But I brushed it off. I told myself I was just more financially stable, that this was what family did. We helped each other. But I see it now. The generosity only flowed one direction. My direction. Outward. They didn't see me as their daughter. They saw me as their resource. And the worst part? I let them. Because I was raised to think that being useful was the same thing as being loved. But as I sat there, staring at my ceiling and letting that realization settle into my bones, I felt something else start to rise. Not just anger, something stronger. Resolve. By morning, the nausea hadn't faded, but the fog in my brain had. I wasn't imagining it anymore. I wasn't overreacting or misinterpreting what I'd heard. I was being exploited, and it wasn't the first time. The sunlight streamed through my blinds as I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank spreadsheet. At the top, I typed, "Financial support to family, 2012 present." My hands trembled as I began filling in the details. There was the $4,000 I wired to my parents in 2017 when the roof on their house supposedly started leaking. I later noticed they got a new hot tub instead. $3,200 to Julian in 2018 for medical bills after a bar fight he claimed left him with a concussion. I never saw a single invoice. $1,500 for mom's emergency dental surgery, which mysteriously lined up with Julian's sudden trip to Arizona for a business conference. And those were just the big ones. There were dozens of smaller amounts. $500 here, $250 there, always couched in some crisis, always wrapped in just enough guilt to make me act before thinking. I spent hours combing through Venmo history, bank transfers, text receipts. By mid-afternoon, I had totaled it. $50,830, 42. I stared at that number, my throat tightening. That was a down payment on a house, 2 new cars, a master's degree, or my dream vacation to Tuscany, twice over. And the most devastating part? I had nothing to show for it. No repayment plans, no thank you notes, no changed behavior, just silence. Expectation, entitlement. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Julian. "Hey, Mads, are you around tonight? Need to talk to you about something. Important." I didn't reply. Instead, I called Talia, my best friend since undergrad and an attorney with a brain sharp enough to slice marble. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, you. I was just thinking about you." I didn't even say hello. The words just tumbled out. "Talia, I think my parents and Julian stole from me." There was a pause, followed by her calm, steady voice. "Tell me everything." I told her about the overheard conversation, the withdrawal, the spreadsheet. Every dollar I could account for. Every time I said yes because I thought saying no made me selfish. When I finished, she exhaled sharply. "Madeline, this isn't just family drama. This is calculated abuse." That word hit me like a punch in the gut. Abuse. "Listen," she continued, "you need to shut down access to your finances immediately. Lock everything down. Open new accounts. Check your credit. We don't know what else they've done in your name." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "Okay, I'll do it." Then she added something that stuck with me. "They're not going to like that you're changing the rules, but that's their problem, not yours." She was right. I'd played by their rules long enough. By the next morning, the numbness had melted into focus. I wasn't going to wait for them to take more. I wasn't going to fall for another guilt-laced ask or a teary-eyed excuse. I was done being predictable. At 8:55 a.m., I stood outside Pacific Ridge Credit Union, dressed in my sharpest navy blue blazer and heels that clicked with purpose. When the doors opened, I walked straight to the desk. "I need to speak to a financial advisor," I said calmly. "It's urgent. Personal account security." 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from Dana Hollis, a short, poised woman with wire-rimmed glasses and a voice that reminded me of steel wrapped in velvet. I explained the situation without naming names. just that I believed someone close to me had accessed funds without my consent, and that I needed to lock down everything. Dana nodded. Let's start by closing the shared account and moving your savings into a new, unlinked account. We'll also reset all online credentials and add dual authentication. By the time we were finished, my money was secured behind multiple firewalls, new passwords, and a new account number I didn't even write down until I got home. And then came the next step, one I'd been dreading. I pulled out my old wallet and took out the faded silver credit card that I'd added my mother to years ago. I remembered her exact words at the time. Just in case of emergencies, sweetheart. I promise I won't use it unless absolutely necessary. She'd charged everything from flights to luxury skincare. I canceled the card on the spot. Afterward, I called Talia again. She picked up right away. I froze the accounts, moved the money, canceled the card. Good, she said, no hesitation. Now let's talk boundaries. So that night, I sat at my kitchen table and opened a fresh notebook. On the top of the page, I wrote, financial boundaries, non-negotiable. Then I listed them, one by one. 1. I will not give or loan more than $100 to family without formal documentation. 2. I will not co-sign, share accounts, or grant access to my credit. 3. I will not discuss my salary, savings, or bonuses with family. 4. I will no longer respond to financial emergencies without a clear, verifiable plan. I reserve the right to say no, without guilt or explanation. When I put down the pen, I sat back and stared at the list. They were just sentences on a page, but to me, they felt like armor. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to fix the family. I was fixing me. Sunday came too quickly. All week, my parents had sent cheerful, pointed messages. Can't wait to see you Sunday. Made your favorite. Hope you're hungry. Julian even texted, big news to share, don't miss it. I almost didn't go, but then I remembered what Dr. Carter, my therapist, once told me. You don't need to avoid them, you just need to stop playing your old role. So I went. But this time, I came prepared. I wore a simple black sweater dress and kept my hair pulled back. No expensive wine, no elaborate dessert like I usually brought. Just me and a quiet determination. The moment I stepped into their house, I saw it. The performance. My mom swept me into a hug that lingered a little too long. You look exhausted, sweetie. Working too hard again? Dad appeared from the hallway, smile already in place. There's our rock star. Tell us everything, Maddie. Any news from work? I gave them a soft smile. Just the usual, you know how hospitals are. His smile faltered just slightly. I saw him mentally crossing out bonus from his list of conversation starters. Dinner was lasagna, garlic knots, and too many side dishes, clearly designed to lower defenses. Julian was already at the table, dressed like he was headed to a tech startup pitch meeting. He gave me a one-armed hug, then launched straight into it. So, I've got this opportunity, he said between bites. It's in emerging digital assets, pre-IPO stuff, but it's exclusive. High yield, short turnaround. I sipped my water. Julian leaned in. It's a minimum $25K buy-in, but if we pool resources, we could make a family investment. Triple returns easy. My mother chimed in. Your brother's been working so hard on this. We're thinking of contributing what we can. If you added something, even just a bit, it would really help push it over the line. Then Dad, with his usual pivot to guilt. It's a family effort. We all rise together, right? I let the silence stretch just long enough before setting my fork down. I'd love to hear more about it, I said, but only after we talk about the $8,500 withdrawal from my account last month. The room froze. Julian's jaw tightened. My mother blinked rapidly. Dad cleared his throat, once, then again. I'm sorry, he said. I folded my hands. I was coming here on Tuesday to share good news. I was outside when I heard you planning how to ask for more after taking money I hadn't even noticed yet. No, honey, that's not, my mother began, but I stopped her. You said I wouldn't notice, that I always try to fix things, that guilt works on me. Julian scoffed. Were you eavesdropping? I was arriving early, you just didn't expect me to hear the truth. And then I looked at each of them. So tell me, was the investment real or just another way to cover up what you already took? No one answered. And that silence, it told me everything. I left before dessert. My mother called after me as I grabbed my coat, voice laced with tears and trembling confusion, like I was the one tearing the family apart. But I didn't stop. I walked out into the crisp autumn air with my head held high, my heartbeat steady, and something unfamiliar blooming inside me: power. That night, my phone lit up like a slot machine. Missed calls from Mom. A voicemail from Dad saying I'd blown everything out of proportion. Julian sent a text that read, "Can't believe you'd betray your own family like this, after all we've done for you." After all they had done for me? The next morning, I received a call from my Aunt Lillian in Boise, whom I hadn't spoken to in nearly a year. "Madeline," she said without preamble, "your mom called me sobbing last night, said you stormed out of dinner, accused them of stealing." I took a breath. "Aunt Lillian, they did take money from me, without asking, and they were planning to ask for more, by lying to me." There was a long pause. "Well," she said carefully, "sometimes families do what they need to when someone is in trouble. Julian's struggling." "I've struggled too," I said, voice flat. "But I never made it someone else's responsibility." She didn't have a response. By the end of the week, I'd been contacted by 5 different relatives, each more invasive and condescending than the last. My Uncle Frank said I was acting emotionally unstable. My cousin Marla asked if I was still seeing a therapist. The subtext was clear. They were trying to discredit me. Then came the final straw. On Thursday, I was called into a brief meeting with my department head. She was kind, almost embarrassed, as she explained that my father had called the hospital, saying he was concerned about my mental health and urging them to keep an eye on me. I sat frozen. The same father who had plotted to drain my savings now tried to undermine my career, my reputation. But instead of panic, I felt steel settle into my spine. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was sabotage. My department head saw the look in my eyes and nodded. I thought it was inappropriate. "Frankly, it reflects more on him than on you." That evening, I blocked their numbers, not out of hate, but because peace had finally become non-negotiable. Ledger, approx. Sir 500 words. The next morning, I woke to a message from Talia. "Call me, urgent." I barely had time to say hello before she launched into it. "Madeline, you're not going to like this. I pulled your credit report like we discussed, and there's something bad. A business line of credit was opened under your name 3 months ago. $20,000. Past due." My stomach dropped. "I never opened any business account," I said, pulse rising. "I know. But someone did, using your social security number, your old address, even your driver's license info." I didn't need to guess. Julian. While I was working night shifts, while I was buying groceries in bulk to save money, he was forging my identity to secure credit for a business that never existed. "How bad is it?" I asked quietly. Talia hesitated. "Bad. The creditors are trying to collect. And the worst part? It's linked to an LLC registered in your name, Carter Wellness Holdings." I sat in stunned silence, my fingers gripping the phone like it could anchor me to the room. The name sounded so believable, so harmless. He'd created a fake health-related company to make it seem like I opened it myself. It was a professional hit job. And it explained the recent strange letters I'd tossed aside, assuming they were junk mail. By noon, I'd spoken to both the credit bureau and a fraud investigator. My credit was being frozen. The police were opening a case. And Julian? He was gone. When I called my cousin Riley, someone who'd always floated between family gossip and real talk, he hesitated before saying, "He left for Mexico a few weeks ago. Said it was a business retreat. But word is, he's running." Running from collectors, from the law, from the mess he made in my name. The real kicker came 2 days later. Another call from Talia, voice low. "Your dad co-signed Julian's real loan from a private investor. It wasn't $8,500. It wasn't $25,000. It was $120,000. She paused. And from what I can see in public records, your parents already took out a home equity loan to cover most of it, right before that dinner. I went silent. So that investment opportunity at dinner? It wasn't about the future. It was about covering the present disaster. They weren't asking me to contribute. They were asking me to bail them out again, just one last time. But this time I had said no, and because of that, their plan had collapsed. I should have felt victorious, but I didn't. I felt grief. Grief for the version of me that had once believed my family was a safety net, that love meant trust, that they'd never hurt me intentionally. But they had. And now they'd have to face the consequences, without me softening the blow. 6 months passed. And with every quiet morning, every boundary honored, every unanswered message, I came back to myself. Spring had arrived in Portland. On my small balcony, a planter box I once never had time for was now filled with lavender, basil, and petunias. And next to it sat Bailey, the rescue dog I adopted on impulse one rainy Tuesday. Her loyalty was uncomplicated, her love freely given, something I was still learning to accept without suspicion. My parents, silent, at least to me directly. Occasionally, they still tried, sending passive-aggressive emails or group updates without addressing the elephant in the room. My mom mailed a birthday card in April. No note inside. Just her looping signature and a Hallmark message about thinking of you always. I didn't respond. Julian, as far as I knew, remained in Mexico, dodging legal issues and whatever creditors had managed to track him. Cousin Riley mentioned he'd reached out asking for more money. This time, no one sent a dime. My father, according to Riley, had tried to sell the family land to repay part of the loan he co-signed, but without my contribution, the numbers didn't add up. And the investor? Rumor had it he wasn't the type to send polite reminder letters, but none of that was my problem anymore. Instead, I focused on the life I was building. At the hospital, I was promoted to Director of Patient Services, a role that gave me more time, more influence, and, for the first time, a true work-life balance. I joined a support group for adult survivors of family financial abuse. The first time I spoke, I cried through half of it. But the women sitting beside me didn't flinch. They understood. Together, 3 of us started a public seminar series called Boundaries and Bloodlines. We taught people how to spot manipulation, document financial misuse, and reclaim power, even when it meant walking away from the people who raised you. It became the most fulfilling thing I'd done outside medicine. One evening, after leading a session, a woman approached me. She looked about 50, tears brimming in her eyes. "You gave me language I didn't know I was allowed to have," she said. "For the first time, I don't feel guilty for saying no." I hugged her, not because I had the answers, but because I knew the ache of that realization. As I walked home that night, Portland glowing under soft streetlights, I thought about how much I'd lost and how much I'd gained. Yes, I lost the illusion of a family who always had my back. But I gained something better: truth, clarity, peace. And in that space, I made room for the kind of family that didn't demand my silence or savings, friends who respected boundaries, coworkers who celebrated integrity, a community that didn't call self-preservation selfish. And most of all, I made room for me. Not the fixer, not the wallet, not the guilt-ridden daughter. Just Madeline Carter, free, whole, and finally, enough.